Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The worst case scenario among the unvaccinated.
We feel like we're kind of going back into battle again, and it's definitely another wave.
The highly contagious Delta variant fueling a surge of new cases across the country. Dire warnings from the nation's top doctor.
Going into the fall with the Delta variant, we could have a really serious problem with a considerable surge of infections.
The variant sweeping through the South, Texas, Arkansas, and Florida, accounting for 40% of new cases in the country. But in Miami, thousands packing a stadium for a live concert.
You're literally like drowning in people.
As the CDC now says they could recommend masks for the fully vaccinated indoors, joining cities like Los Angeles, St. Louis, and New Orleans. But in Arkansas, a new law banning mask mandates goes into effect this week.
It's important not to have the current debate about mask wearing, but to have the current emphasis on getting a vaccine.
Only 49% of the country is fully vaccinated, those without the shots making up 99.5% of COVID deaths. Frontline workers, once again, with urgent pleas to the public.
We are seeing younger patients, all unvaccinated, that are sicker.
Dr. Michael Bolding has been working in the COVID ward in Fayetteville, Arkansas since the start of the pandemic. He's seeing more COVID patients now than ever before.
What would it mean to you and your colleagues if more people got vaccinated?
Less pain and suffering, and call less families to tell them their loved ones didn't make it.
Oh, good God. Oh, my God. Oh, God. How much evidence do people need to know that vaccines are safe and effective? How much? How much is too much? How much is not enough? I don't know. I have to just start out by telling you that Indonesia has 12% of their COVID patients under the age of 12. Just saying. 12 and younger cannot get vaccinated yet. They can't. So this red state surge that we're seeing, it's a primarily red state surge of COVID-19. 95% or more are the unvaccinated. Now, you can scream your libertarian, wet dream of having absolutely no rules in a society, all you want. But what is the fall going to look like if we say that people who are unvaccinated get to infect others, including children? It's going to look a lot like rural Missouri and Alabama, and from a public health perspective, that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing. I swear to God, the biggest spreader, it turns out, of coronavirus misinformation online is a doctor in Florida named Joseph Mercola, which immediately pulls the question to my mind, why didn't Donald Trump put him in charge of vaccinations? He is a massive anti-vaxxer who has made $100 million off of, quote-unquote natural cures for what ails you. He's sort of a snake oil guy, like he'll offer you, but he also offers things that are demonstrably false and bad for you. Like he was saying that tanning beds, I don't know why he chose, I guess he had a sponsor. I don't know. But he was promoting the fact that tanning beds cure or prevent cancer. I'm not kidding. And complaints to the Federal Trade Commission, which is what we're all involved in now, right, everybody, right? Filing complaints with the Federal Trade Commission and the Food and Drug Administration, people started to get some sort of result from doing this. And he was ordered to pay people who spent anywhere from $1,200 to $4,000 on tanning beds that he was promoting as cures and prevention for cancer. He had to pay back $2.95 million to the people who spent that kind of money believing him. And he's still at it, this guy. He's still at it. You know, like I just can't believe, you know. Listen, Alan Weisselberg is no longer the head of the CFO of the Trump, org. Why not just go there? Why not just go there? Just go work in Manhattan and get off of Facebook and Twitter and all that other thing. I mean, if they combine their efforts, Mercola and Trump, we'd all be dead in a couple of weeks. And that would prevent us from dying from climate change, which also is happening. This is all human. This is just dysfunction in our society. This is complete and utter dysfunction that is going on here, to the point where they're going to see another heat wave across the Great Lakes, the Mid-Plains, the Pacific Northwest, again this week. Again this week. You're talking about the Dakotas and Montana. The city of Billings experienced 12 days above 95 degrees this month. Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, sweltering temperatures reaching 110. Des Moines, Minneapolis, and Chicago, significantly above average heat. Great Lakes, northern regions of the Rocky Mountains, Great Plains, Pacific Northwest, and California are all going to experience another heat dome this week. The climate scientists are saying that the barrage of heat waves over the past month, which have parched farms and caused roads to buckle and resulted in the obliteration of long-standing temperature records, are being fueled by predicted human-caused climate change. But the scientists admit that they were caught off guard by the ferocity of the onslaught. Now, you can't avoid climate change. I mean, you can move away from where it's flooding, but then you'll end up living where there's fires or frequent tornadoes, you understand? Because right now, the entire planet looks like some cheesy disaster movie from the 1970s. I mean, any minute, Charlton Heston's going to show up. Do you know what I'm saying? There used to be natural disasters, and then there were man-made disasters. And now man has gotten into the business of causing natural disasters as well. This is all dysfunction. This is all misinformation, disinformation, dysfunctional people. This is a politicization of basic human rights to breathe in a fresh breath of cool, unvirused air. I mean, this is so all of it is preventable, all of it. And yet we have red state people who literally are insisting that they don't need a vaccine. They don't need to wear a mask. They are going to be spared from, I don't know, the onslaught of climate change somehow, somewhere. They don't have to participate in anything at all, to protect and defend this nation from all enemies, viral and domestically produced. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Now, of course, who's leading the country in COVID cases? Why, it's right here in Florida. Right here in Florida, 20% of all the cases are still coming from Florida. We went from 46,000 cases to 73,000 cases this last week. That's just we'll get new. Well, Florida decided that they're not going to report daily numbers, which is why we only have weekly numbers. So we have to wait till the end of this week to tell you what is going on here in Florida, because Governor Death Sentence doesn't want to release daily numbers like normal people would get, so normal people could understand the risk that they were putting themselves and or their family members in. So we don't report daily here in Florida. Just know that. We only get weekly numbers. But I mean, the political divide is among the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. It is obvious to trace it now to the sort of media they inhale.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Fox News.
Yes.
Which, you don't have to work hard there to find people dissing on vaccines until recently. Some of their people
Some of them
have started suggesting, hey, science works, vaccines work. Why?
Here's the reason why. Look at this. So this is age 18. It's adults with at least one COVID vaccine dose by their main source of news. Look at this. Fox News, just 62% of people who use Fox News as their main news source have at least one dose. Compare that to ABC News, ABC, CBS, NBC, 79%, or this network and MSNBC, 83%. So what we see is about 20 points less of the Fox News audience has been vaccinated compared to the people who get their news from, say, some other television outlet.
And the trend lines here are also revealing, yes?
Very revealing. And this sort of gets at something that's so interesting to me is if you look back to, say, mid-April to mid-June, look here. CNN, MSNBC, 74% of the audience was vaccinated. ABC, 75%. Fox News, 61%. Now jump ahead to their numbers from late June to late July. Look at this. Fox News just went from 61 to 62. Barely a move at all over the last month and a half compared to, say, the ABC, CBS, NBC crowd, a 4-point jump from 75 to 79. And the CNN, MSNBC crowd, look at that, a jump from 74% to 83%. So what we're seeing is it's not only that Fox News is lagging, but it's also that the trend line's in a poor direction where the audience that was vaccinated continues to be vaccinated, obviously, but not a lot of new people getting vaccinated, even though we're seeing that from people who get their news from, say, another network.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that the 61%, that is now 62% of Fox News viewers who got vaccinated were over the age of 65. I'm just going to guess that that is the fact about them. This is pure poison. You understand that. This is absolute poison. This is a red state surge that we did not and do not have to experience into the fall when it's going to be flu season. Naturally, it's going to be viral season. I mean, this is crazy. So we were doing about anywhere from 2 to 3 million vaccinations a day during the initial surge of vaccinations when people said, okay, this was a really sucky year. This really blew. I want to go places. I want to do things. I'm a senior. I'm vulnerable. Whatever it was that you told yourself that made you take care of yourself and the others around you. Now we're down to, in 10 days, in the last 10 days combined, we did 5 million vaccines. We were doing 3 million vaccines each day, every day. And now in the last 10 days, we've managed to find 5 million people who are ready to help themselves. This is really bad. This is dangerous. This is, and the doctors, I'm telling you, doctors, nurses, especially in Tennessee, in St. Louis, in Louisiana, in Alabama, and of course in Mississippi, they are getting very, very cynical about treating you. They will treat you, but they are getting very cynical about it, saying, my God, what is wrong with these people? And they're asking good questions. Like one of the questions I heard a doctor ask over the weekend, he said, why don't people trust us when we tell them that the vaccines are safe and effective? But they do trust us to take care of them when they're sick. What is it that only when you have everything to lose, suddenly you say, I trust my doctor, but prior to that, you did not? You thought your doctor was involved in some sort of communist plot or some sort of anti-freedom connected group? I mean, this is bizarre. This is crazy. This makes no sense to me at all. And it's always anger. It's always anger. The people that don't want to they're angry. They're angry. You're shoving it down my throat. You're this, you're that. Nobody is shoving anything down any orifice of yours. It is completely not mandatory. It is completely by choice. What is going on, though, is our hospitals are getting overwhelmed again with people who refuse to take care of themselves. And then when they're very, very sick, they report to the hospital and say, fix me. Now you fix me. And you know what the problem with that is? It's not just the exhaustion and the burnout from the nurses and the doctors and the clinicians and the respiratory therapists and the rooms that you're taking up and the amount of time that it requires to prone you and intubate you and then get you rehabbed because you've been laying on an intubator for days and your muscles are getting weak and whatever, and maybe now you have long COVID and you need constant care and you're chronic or whatever. No, it's because people who need surgery, people who need hip replacements, people who don't have COVID, they can't get any medical care themselves because you're gumming up the whole freaking hospital. Inside the hospitals, I have to say, you know, the nurses, the doctors, they're burnt out. It's been a year of continuous work with COVID-19 patients throughout the pandemic. The burnout is from constant exposure to death and trauma, and they are exhausted, and you have no respect for their long education, for their informational value, unless you're very, very sick and then oh, please give me the vaccine. And they have to then tell you it's too late. It's too freaking late. So you have hospitalizations in Tennessee. Now, you remember Tennessee? They fired the woman who was in charge of vaccinations in Tennessee, Dr. I think her name was Fiscus. Remember? They fired her. They had this Tennessee town hall meeting, right? This, and they fired her because they said she was tempting children with these vaccines or so. It was such crap. It was so brutal that, she said, well, they told her she could resign or be fired. She said, go ahead and fire me. They fired her. And now Tennessee cases have doubled. They've doubled. Hospitalizations have doubled. And 80% of the new cases are tied to Delta. The transmission rate is increasing. 95% of everybody in the hospital, everybody on the oxygen tank, everybody in the prone position, 95% of those people are unvaccinated. And they are tired. And their patients are getting younger. They said during the peak of the COVID pandemic, when their hospitals were packed, most patients were over 61. Now they say their patients are averaging 51 years old, and they have been treating an increasing number of younger patients. This one nurse, his name is Matt, I'll just leave it at that, because people are abusing caregivers. How sick are you? Caregivers online. They abused this doctor that was fired, Michelle Fiscus, that was her name. She said that she endured a right-wing backlash, making her a major target online, offline, because she had asked the general counsel of the state of Tennessee whether or not the mature minor doctrine applied to kids who were between 12 and 18, but, wanted a vaccine without their parents being present. Remember that? Okay, so now they're treating people in their mid-20s. And this nurse, Matt, said that when he used to treat patients, he thought, oh my, that could have been my grandparent. That could have been my parent. He said, now I look at these patients and he said, that could be me. He's 29 years old.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
About a month ago, we saw President Biden and a number of governors across the country, Democrats and Republicans, saying that the virus was in retreat. In retrospect, that sure seems premature.
Well, it certainly is in retreat among the vaccinated, Jake, and it gets back to what we've been saying. It's kind of like we have two kinds of America.
Yeah.
We have the very vulnerable unvaccinated part, and we have the really relatively protected vaccinated part. So if you are vaccinated, you are really in a very different category than someone who's not vaccinated.
Two Americas, everybody, just like Sarah Palin said. The real America is literally laying prone or intubated in a hospital. The real America. I guess that makes me fake America. I mean, this is just so sad. And my heart goes out to the doctors, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, the people who have to treat these vaccination fearful, hesitant, lied to, disinformed, misinformed. I don't know what it is, for everybody, but I can tell you that there is definitely a correlation between the news you imbibe and the way you view this virus and prevention of this virus. And, I was going back and forth with somebody on Twitter, just a very weird, conversation. I don't know why. Sometimes I just, it's like, it's almost fun for me. But it's sad because this person is not going to be okay. It's just really sad. This person is in Miami. It's a very crowded city. It doesn't have mask mandates. It had massive concerts this weekend. People were indoors partying. Now, even when you think, oh, well, this doesn't affect the younger people, let me tell you something. Younger people who may have COVID and are what they call asymptomatic, meaning they show no sign of disease, they're spreading it, okay? It lives in your freaking nose. It's in your nose. Okay, this is ridiculous. And have you seen the people that used to wear a mask, but that now they don't wear masks because they think it's over? But even when they did wear a mask, they wore a mask right below their nose. It was like, hey, virus, find me. It's just ridiculous. It's like stupid is as stupid does. I never really understood that line in Forrest Gump, and now I do. He was from Alabama. He understood it. Greenbow, your mama sure does care about your education. Yeah. But I mean, it's unbelievable. So now you have some places that are reinstating mask mandates because we have so many unvaccinated Americans who have now said, of the unvaccinated, 80% of them have said, and there's about 100 million unvaccinated people in this country, and 80% of them have said, I will never get one. I will never get a vaccine. I don't want one. I will never get one. And it is those people who are jeopardizing all the progress we've made, number one. Number two, those are the people who don't trust their doctors until it's too late, and then they throw their lives into their doctor's hands and beg them, plead with them to save them. Those are the people that are gumming up the hospital system. Those are the people that are taking up the beds. Those are the people that are keeping cancer patients from getting their cancer treatments, that are keeping joint replacement patients from getting their joint replacement surgeries. This is so unfair and so unwise and so selfish that, of course, it's a red state surge. Because that's where the angry people live. That's who they are. That's what they are. And that's why Donald Trump does what he does. He keeps on feeding them sources that they can latch onto to stay angry. He did it this week, and I don't know if you saw this. He went out to Arizona. I mean, I hate to play it because, listen, for the most part, no one saw it, I don't think. But the man was just out there saying that America was a communist country now. Really, he said that we were communist. We were communists. That Mike Pence was a coward, that we were communists. He wants the routers now. I mean, talk about an old orange man who loves the tanning bed. I'm telling you, Dr. Mercola and Donald Trump, they would be fast friends. They would get along just great. But he was out there and he was saying that he wants the routers from the Arizona recount. Routers do not store any information at all. Routers are like an electrical current. If you don't understand computers, it just passes on through like a wire. The wire doesn't store any electricity. It doesn't store any information. It doesn't store any data. Neither do routers. And he's like telling these really undereducated people that there's a router, that if he could just get his hands on the router, and he said it over and over. I mean, it was, I'm just going to play you this. This is sick.
The county has, for whatever reason, also refused to produce the network routers. We want the routers, Sonny. Wendy, we got to get those routers, please. The routers. Come on, Kelly, we can get those routers. Those routers, you know what? We're so beyond the routers. There's so many fraudulent votes without the routers. But if you got those routers, what that will show, and they don't want to give up the routers. They don't want to give them. They are fighting like hell. Why are these commissioners fighting not to give the routers? How simple could it be? That will tell the truth.
He's insane, as you know, and stupid. And his followers love it. They love it. And it's dangerous, and it's deadly, and it's killing people. And I don't know what else to say. Routers do not store any information. There's also information that is true that Donald Trump raised $75 million off of the big lie. $75 million, and he's spending $0 on these audits or getting the routers or anything. He has spent no dollars on proving that the election was stolen. You know, I swear to God, every time I think a Republican gets close to telling the truth, every time Marjorie Taylor Greene, or every time Lauren Boebert, or every time Paul Gosar, or every time, Donald Trump gets close to telling the truth, and the truth is that there was no fraud in this election that would have changed anything at all, no result in any state, anywhere in this country. They look at the fundraising dollars. They look at their PayPal, or they look at their pay platform, whatever they're using to collect dollars. And they say, nah. I mean, I would tell the truth, but look at all this money. And it just keeps going and going. And it's really ugly, and it's really dangerous. And now we're finding out, there's a very long article in the New York Times today. It is in the homework. I'll warn you right now. It's not very long. I mean, very long is like 25 pages. This is seven, which takes some stamina, okay, for most people. But it's talking about disinformation companies for hire, that people are being solicited by companies that will spread disinformation for you so you can raise money off of it, but you'll also have plausible deniability. It's like a step of separation from the providers to your listeners or to your audience.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
How concerned are you that come this fall, COVID infection rates, hospitalization rates, death rates will all go up, and then we will be back where we were this time a year ago?
Well, Jonathan, if you look, you did a lot of accurate math there, but the other part of the math tells you if we stay where we are right now with regard to unvaccinated, of those people who are eligible to get vaccinated, you're probably going to have like 100 million people who are not vaccinated. With that many unvaccinated people going into the fall, with the Delta variant as efficient as it is in transmitting, we could have a really serious problem with a considerable surge of infections. I don't know how bad it would be. Models tell you it could be pretty bad, but it certainly is not going to be good. We could be in trouble if we don't do a much, much better job of getting a lot more people vaccinated.
I don't understand. I mean, you have a disease. The severe version of the disease that causes death and suffering is completely preventable. And yet people just eschew prevention of a severe disease. What has happened to this country? What has happened? I promise you, if Donald Trump had been president in the 50s, we would still have polio. We would still have smallpox. We would still have chickenpox outbreak. We would have measles and mumps. And I mean, this is just crazy. This is just insanity that has degenerated in our country. You have 15 states that are literally considering measures to limit the legal authority of public health agencies, to limit the information that they put out, to limit the recommendations that they put out. This is all being done by ALEC and the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, and other sick groups. The American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, I'm reading this from the Washington Post, everybody, okay, which has touted its model legislation aimed at reining in emergency powers so that it's more narrowly tailored to serve a compelling public health or safety purpose? What could be more compelling? What could be more important than vaccinating people against a disease that could kill them? I don't understand. But the guy who is in charge of the policy and putting these pre-written pieces of legislation out, his name is Jonathan Howenschildt. Yeah, Howenschildt. He's an expert on model legislation, meaning we write it, we give you money, you pass it, right? And he's writing these measures that are being taken up in states like North Dakota to prohibit mask mandates, even during an outbreak of tuberculosis, and a new Montana law that prohibits the use of quarantining to separate sick people who have been infected or exposed but are not yet sick, meaning they're asymptomatic, but they still can spread the virus. 15 state legislatures have passed these measures to limit the legal authority of their public health agencies. 46 states have introduced hundreds of bills to the ability to mandate mask wearing in public places. I mean, this is some Indiana, Kentucky. Their General Assembly just approved, a 30-day, you got to re-up every 30 days, anything that you want to do. All your legislation will expire every 30 days. You have a libertarian group in Sacramento called the Pacific Legal Foundation. They're also doing 30-day sunsets on any mandates for masking. Daniel Dew, the legal policy director for the Pacific Legal Foundation, estimated that the group has had discussions with lawmakers in more than half the states and has been able to trace at least 18 bills to its model legislation. The Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, their political network has done the same thing. They're enshrining certain religious exemptions so that you can claim that it violates your religion to put a mask on your face. I don't understand. The legislature in Ohio, they overrode a veto by their Republican governor, Mike DeWine, in response to a bill that gave power to the executive for the state health authorities to mandate masks or quarantining or whatever. I mean, what is wrong with people? And it seems like anybody that has, Republican political aspirations in the midterms for the Senate or for a House member or for any governor that has to run again, like Ron death sentence here in Florida, they are all telling people this is a free country and you're free to infect your neighbors. That's not what freedom is. Freedom begins and ends, I can't say this enough, and in this case, my God, where your nose begins and ends. That is where freedom ends. So your little virus, your droplets, your sneezing, you are not free to do that in this here country. This is really scary, and I don't know what has happened to people that has made them to distrust science, distrust doctors, distrust health advice. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm going to guess that it was conservative crazy radio, conservative crazy television that made you distrust, that told you that, all you need to do is take this iodine supplement and you'll live through everything. I don't know. But people made millions of dollars off of your ignorance, literally. And now you're costing us. You're costing us our lives. You're costing us our future. You're costing us our children's health. You're costing a fortune, really. Jeff in California.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
I don't know who that is. Jim in Pennsylvania.
Hello, Randy.
Hello.
Thank you first for the 4 years you got me through Trumpitis. Without you, I was having fits. Anyway, with this virus stuff, I've got friends that are saying polio, that wasn't even a shot. Okay, that's wrong, and that all the other ones we took when I'm 69 years old. My friend, before the polio shot I took in my arm, she was wounding up at an iron lung. They don't even want to hear that. You know?
Listen, the problem with that is that this virus will have a chance to mutate, and it could pierce our vaccinations. Because we're allowing it to grow and get stronger and more virulent and more deadly. And that is the problem. Otherwise, you could just look at them and say, listen, go over there and go roll up in a ball and call it a life. But you can't. You can't just be passive with them. You have to find somebody they trust to tell them that they must get vaccinated or tested every week. That's the compromise. You don't want to get vaccinated? Fine. Get tested every week.
Yes, I agree with you. And it's what's sad is I think that the way the schools are not handling common sense education. I was an independent living worker for 34 years at Children and Youth, and I went into schools and talked to kids about budgeting. They had no clue. They didn't know anything about healthcare. They didn't know anything about where they could even where they go to get a birth certificate. They don't. So none of these things are being taught for life skills. They expect the parents to do it. And with all the stuff going on, a lot of parents aren't doing that. They don't care. The kid turns 18 if they're even with them by then, Well,
I don't know about you, but when I was in school, they didn't teach anything about how to write a check or how to balance your bank account or, where you could go for, medical care if you needed it. No, they didn't teach us anything. We had home ec class. And you know what home ec was for girls? It was how to make spaghetti sauce. It really was. It was how to make freaking spaghetti sauce. And I remember there was a girl that used to bully me. And so when they were teaching us, I swear to God, this is what they spent their time teaching us, how to make spaghetti and spaghetti sauce. So when she was boiling her water, I sort of put Ajax in it. Yeah. And then I felt guilty. I felt bad. So before she ate her spaghetti, which was cooked in the boiling water that I put Ajax in, I actually told her. But that's what home ec is. That's what they teach. They don't teach any life skills. Nothing at all. And now they don't want to teach history. Texas just banned teaching about Martin Luther King Jr.
Donate.
Mary had a little man.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Will you be appointing more Republicans to the committee like Congressman Adam Kinzinger?
That would be my plan.
So when will that be announced?
Perhaps after I speak to Adam Kinzinger. But I'm not about to announce it right this minute. But you could say that is the direction that I would be going on. He and other Republicans have expressed an interest to serve on the select committee, and I wanted to appoint three of the members that Leader McCarthy suggested, but he withdrew their names. The two that I would not appoint are people who would jeopardize the integrity of the investigation. And there's no way I would tolerate their antics as we seek the truth.
Yes, because they would have been there to disrupt and discredit the exact committee that they volunteered to serve on. And that is bullcrap. So she was willing to take three of Kevin McCarthy's picks, not Jim Jordan and not the other guy that actually still says that the election was stolen, to sit on a committee that is going to look into the insurrection that resulted from Donald Trump's massive effort to lie to his supporters in a highly political moment the moment of counting votes, the moment of certification of counted votes. This is ridiculous. He's still out there. He's still grifting. He's still fundraising off of this. You know, money cannot buy Donald Trump happiness, as you can see. He just likes making people unhappy and angry. That is as close as to happiness that Donald Trump will ever get, is knowing that he's making people sick and miserable. This somehow fills him up with emotion. I won't say joy or happiness because I don't think he can feel those things. I really don't. Most narcissists can't. They're dead inside. You understand that? And I don't think he's any exception to that rule. So here you have this man raising $75 million so far this year. That is money that could have gone... Oh, well, the better use of it would have been if he set it on fire or wiped his ass with it, because he's not using it to do anything to prove that somehow he was robbed or that the election was rigged. Or I mean, he is literally out there ginning up anger and distrust and mistrust in this country to the point where we can't even keep ourselves safe from something that is preventable, from something that literally would take you 2 seconds to administer. Although I will say this, for those of you who are waiting for the vaccine, you're just waiting. I don't know what you're waiting for. You have 335 plus million vaccines in this country alone distributed in people's arms. The VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Events Records System, is literally looking into, last time I checked, 3 cases of death that followed receiving a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. 3 out of 335 plus million doses administered. Now, I don't know what they're going to find in those 3 cases. We'll wait and see. But honest to God, man, what's wrong with you people? I mean, this is just so unbelievable that you're sitting there saying, I don't want to prevent what's preventable. I would rather die. I would rather jeopardize my life. I would rather be very, very, very severely sick. I would rather be hospitalized and tended to by doctors who I say I don't trust. This makes no sense to me. Anyway, tomorrow we're going to start to hear testimony from the testimony will be from the police officers who defended these lying sacks of crap. The police officers who literally risked their lives, who were abused and beaten and bloodied and bear sprayed and attacked and crushed. We're going to hear testimony from the police officer. The couple will be from the D.C. Metro, and a couple of them will be from the Capitol Police, who will testify, because the first goal of these hearings is to explain to people what the hell actually happened, what really took place on Capitol Hill, what really happened up on, at the Capitol building on January 6th, all born on anger and lies that were fed to them by this heavyweight world champion, prolific, narcissistic, lying sack of crap. And people are still giving that lying sack of crap money. Now, he could spend this money that he's raising from the stupid who like to be led. He could spend that money on the audits, which would be a waste of money too, but at least it would be a waste of Trump's money. And he's not stupid. He just likes the stupid because you're easy marks, you're dupes, you're targets for him. So, you remember in 2016 he said he was going to finance his own election? Remember that? Yeah, he did not do that. And now he won't spend any of his money to steal an election. And stealing an election is the thing he lives for. It's crazy. This is just madness. And the damage that he's done, and the levels of anger, always the angry, always the angry in this country. They're the easily exploitable. Why? I've said it to you a million times, and I say it from personal experience. I say it because I have been white light angered in my life. I have seen the white light. I have been so angry that you could kill. I know that feeling. And you know what? You don't make good decisions when you're that angry. You don't make the right choices when you're angry. It's sort of like being drunk. It may feel comforting to be angry. It may feel normal at some point, but you don't make the best decisions in a state like that. And he has decided that keeping people perpetually angry in this country works for him. And it does. Financially, it works for him. All his grifts, you're the prey. His supporters are the prey. And a lot of them are poor. A lot of them. Now, he was, this is so sick. He was saying that the election fraud was like diamond theft, okay? This is what he was saying to, his supporters on Saturday. Oh, God.
They almost got away with it. They may have gotten away with it. We're going to find out because something's going to have to be done. But I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, if somebody robs Tiffany, a beautiful jeweler, 57th and 5th, good location, excellent location.
Next door
and
to
they
Trump
steal
Tower.
the diamonds. And then they get caught. They have to turn the diamonds back. It's very simple. Amazing the way it works.
So he steals not from people who have diamonds or live next door to Tiffany, which is right on the, okay, it's De Beers is the first diamond store that's across the street from Trump Tower. And then the one 2 stores away is Tiffany. That's the block he lives on. De Beers, Diamonds, and Tiffany. He's not stealing from people who have De Beers diamonds and Tiffany jewelry. He's stealing from people who wear rhinestones and put bling in their MAGA hats with, bedazzlers. Now, he steals from people who do have diamonds, like the United Arab Emirates, but they make sure that they get what they paid for, which is a change in U.S. foreign policy. I mean, this is just the biggest grift I've ever seen in my whole life. And, growing up in New York, you see a lot of grift. You see everything from crazy poker games to 3-card Monte tricks, guys on the street, magicians, all kinds of guys grifting all over you, and some of it is just, it's awe-inspiring. You go, all right, here's the dollar. I know it's not real, but here's the dollar. This man has got it down, stealing from the poorest of the poor, stealing from the people in the most rural places, and holding back infrastructure and investment. Wow.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
A lot of the rhinos don't realize that yet. A lot of the leaders of the Republic, guys like Mitch McConnell, they have no idea how big an issue this is. This is the biggest issue with the Republican Party and the Republican voter. When I get up and speak, all they want to talk about is the election fraud, because it was the crime of the century. And people are dying, and our country's going to hell because of a rigged election, and it's a shame.
God, is he a liar? The election was not rigged. The election was not rigged. It was not rigged. It wasn't rigged. It wasn't rigged. I don't know how many times I have to actually say that, but, now I have a Roku TV because I wanted to watch free speech TV at home, and it's not on the cable systems, so I got a Roku TV, a little $150 TV, 32-inch. Can you believe you could buy a 32-inch flat screen these days for $100? But you can, and so my TV in my office, my orifice, it died. And so I sent Howard to the store, and he comes back with a Roku TV. I was like, okay, whatever. But now I can watch, this is where this crazy news network is. This is not free speech. Free speech is there, too, on that Roku channel. It's also on DirecTV and Dish Network, but so is OAN. And oh my God. And you know what they do on that TV channel? They're independent journalists. Oh, good God. They literally are fundraising for him for these Arizona fake audit, this fraud that's been going on for 3 freaking months. 3 freaking months with the where the people now of Maricopa County have to pay $6 million to replace their voting equipment because it was fingered by cyber ninjas. I mean, this is so bizarre. And people are literally having to pay to replace all their voting equipment now because of him. And nobody's raising a stink about it because I don't think a lot of people understand just exactly how fraudulent all this is, what they're doing, and that it's costing citizens money to support this lie. But anyway, this crazy frauded thing that's going on in Arizona, it's still going on. We're about to, the calendar's going to turn into August, and it's still freaking going on out there. And he is still fundraising off of it, and then the money he collects, he keeps. Oh my God. How much of a mark are you? How much are you going to take from this piece of swell, this dung? Wow. It's just, wow. It just, but now we're dying. See, this is where I hate to say the rubber in the same breath as him. But honestly, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the lie is literally causing not just a strain on taxpayers who have to now pay to replace their voting equipment, but a strain on hospitals, a strain on doctors. You have nurses that have post-traumatic stress disorder because they're completely surrounded by trauma and death every day. Preventable death. Now, I guess, the feeling that you would get when you were tending to people who, through no fault of their own, were contracting this novel coronavirus that no one knew anything about. I guess it was exacerbated also by a president who was on TV saying it was a hoax while you were, helping patients recover or die one way or the other, holding their hands, FaceTiming with their families so they could say their final goodbyes while having the TV on in the patient's room and watching an orange thing on the TV saying it's a hoax, it's not real. I don't know how that might have been, but now it's totally preventable. The hospitalization part certainly is. And these people who have been doing this for a year are literally starting to be, they're starting to resent these patients. They don't know what to make of them. They really don't, because they say that the patients come in, they're very, very sick. Obviously, if they're being admitted to a hospital, they are extremely severely sick with COVID, which attacks your lungs, okay? You can't breathe. You cannot breathe. And so they're having to deal with these patients in an emergency environment, getting air to them, sometimes intubating them, sometimes proning them, trying everything they can do to get them out of distress, knowing that they didn't have to end up here in this position, right? And the patients, they say the expression on their face is really what's traumatizing the doctors and the nurses. They say the expression on the patient's faces are expressions of deep regret and remorse. And they're saying, I really didn't think it was real. I really thought it was a hoax. I really didn't think it was real. Can you give me the vaccine now? And they're saying, it's too late. It's too late. And the really scary part for those of us who do the right thing when no one's looking, who may have been scared of this vaccine, who may have been hesitant about it, who may have, known that there are some people that got sick for a day, some people who slept all day after the vaccine, some people who got the chills, some people who ran a fever, some people who felt nauseous after the vaccine, and so it scared us because we thought, oh my God, I don't want to be sick, or oh my God, I can't take off of work. And a lot of people can't take off of work. You take off of work, you don't get paid. So we have a country where we don't have sick leave. We have a country where we don't have paid medical leave. So a lot of people who were afraid to take the vaccine were afraid to take it because they didn't think they would be able to go to work the next day. And they couldn't afford to not go to work the next day. So that factors into the decision. It did factor into mine too, but honestly, when you do the right thing when no one's looking and you just say, all right, I'll just do it because it's the right thing to do, you feel better. You feel better. You just do because you know you did the right thing. People know when they're doing the wrong thing. People know it. And the people who are doing the wrong thing, this is what they're doing wrong. They are allowing for something that could end to not end. They are allowing for this virus, which could be snuffed out. If we got to 70-75% vaccinated as a population, Canada's there. The UK is there. If we got to that place where herd immunity is achieved, we'd be free. Then we'd be free. But because we have 100 million people who won't do the right thing, we are giving this virus a chance to mutate, a chance to grow stronger, a chance to grow more virulent, a chance to be more deadly, a chance to pierce our vaccinations to the point where we don't get mild illness when it pierces the vaccination. That's called breakthrough illness. No, that we get severe COVID yet again because they won't do the right thing when no one's looking. So what we have to do, we can't mandate anything. I just want you to know that. We can't mandate vaccines, okay? Why? Well, they're not approved. The FDA only has them on emergency use authorization. I'll tell you what I have in mind.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
There's been talk about potentially people advocating at the federal level imposing compulsory masks on kids. We're not doing that in Florida, okay? We need our kids to breathe.
Do you know how ridiculous? I can't get over that statement that he made. We need our kids to breathe. COVID is a respiratory virus, and he won't allow for masks to be worn in schools because our kids need to breathe. Holy crap. Now, this is all coming from big money. This is dark money. This is why we need H.R. 1, okay? You know, when you watch Tom Barrack plead not guilty today to violating FARA laws, foreign lobbying laws on behalf of the United Arab Emirates and the Saudis who are friends, so that a guy named Jamal Khashoggi can be dismembered, and the United States does nothing at all about that. And our foreign policy changes by foreign money coming into our politics. H.R. 1 actually addresses that. That's number one. Number two, when you listen to Ron Deathset say, we're not going to mask our children, we're not going to do that, that's the Koch brothers money, okay? This is the crazy Koch brothers, the Americans for Prosperity money, that is tying the hands of local legislatures to enact whatever prevention methods are necessary in order to stop the spread of COVID and stop the mutation of the virus into even deadlier and more deadly variants, right? If we stomped it out, it'd be gone. It would have no place to nest or host itself or mutate. It would just die off. But the virus wants to live more than Republicans do. And that's the sad dilemma. So here's what I suggest we do. Since we're up against it in red states with lunatic, fringy governors who have dreams and delusions of grandeur based on how many deaths they preside over, it's very sick and sad. We have to make it harder for people who don't want to be vaccinated, who don't want to wear a mask, and who don't want to get tested. They don't want to do any of those three things. Now, I get that we can't mandate the vaccine. It's only an emergency use authorized vaccine. They need 6 months of data in order to clear it for FDA approval. We're getting there. We're getting close to FDA approval. But unless and until there's a 6-month study that the FDA feels confident in, we will not get the FDA to approve this as regular medicine, as just a normal vaccine that goes along with flu vaccines, that goes along with mumps, measles, rubella, smallpox, polio. The other alternative for people who won't get vaccinated is obviously to wear a mask and socially distance. Well, now you got idiot governors who are seeing an enormous infusion of cash from various groups telling them to prohibit mask mandates from going into effect. And schools are going to be, they're always petri dishes, as you know. Schools are notorious for passing viruses. Schools are a place where kids go, come home, and the whole family gets sick. Why? Because schools are petri dishes for respiratory viruses. So we know that the kids may not get COVID as badly as adults do, but we also know that kids can transmit it. And once school starts, if he refuses to do any of the mitigation policies that need to get done, like masking, like separating children, smaller class sizes, better ventilation, maybe HEPA filters, all this stuff, right? If he refuses to do any of those things, and their parents refuse to do any of those things, meaning they won't get a vaccination, nor will they wear masks, nor will they social distance, nor will they test themselves weekly to see if they are asymptomatic spreaders, which is what makes this virus so omnipresent, so difficult to defeat. Why? Because people with no symptoms can pass it to others. Then we have to make it much, much harder for unvaccinated people to do things. We just do. We have to make it harder for unvaccinated people to go to a restaurant, and private businesses can do this. We have to make it harder for unvaccinated people to work in the government, and our federal government is already doing that. As of today, if you work at the VA, I don't care if you're an osteopath or a dentist. I don't care if you're a chiropractor or a nurse. If you work at VA, you must be vaccinated. We have to make things harder to do. Right now, being unvaccinated has zero penalty. It's got high risk for others, but it has zero penalty. So if you want to go into a restaurant, if you want to come into my place of business, if you want to, you can't come in here without a mask. You can't. There are 4 people that we share an office with another company, and there are a total of 5 people on a busy day. 5. It's me in this room all by myself. Brett is on the other side. There's a glass window, and Brett's on the other side of that glass window in the studio running the board by himself. Then there's a long hallway, and down that hallway is another company, and we split the rent in this place. Every one of us is vaccinated. Every one of us. And the people in the front are younger than we are, much younger. They're in their 20s. One girl is, I think she's probably my age. The other girl is younger. She's probably in her early 30s. And then the kid that runs the company in front is probably in his mid-20s. Vaccinated. You cannot come in here without a mask because we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. So whenever somebody delivers to us, whether I don't care if it's Office Depot delivering my highlighters and my paper for my printer, mask up. There's a big sign on the door. Masks are not optional. Put on a mask if you want to come in here. People have got to start demanding their safety. They have to start demanding that the people who will not voluntarily take care of themselves, the people who will not voluntarily believe in science, who will not voluntarily protect themselves or from whatever's going to come out of the school, from whatever their kids are going to bring home, they're just going to circulate. And, Florida is notorious because we have this lunatic, fringy governor. We just have to make it harder for people to do stuff. It has to be harder for unvaccinated people to do things. There will come a point, I think, where people are going to have to prove that they're vaccinated to do things. Now, our governor, the cruise lines, they have ports here. Port of Fort Lauderdale, Port of Miami, very large cruise ports. The cruise lines wanted to have vaccination passports, basically. Our governor prohibited them from being able to ask passengers to prove that they're vaccinated, and now we're going to lose our cruise business. They're going to go to Houston or somewhere else.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
You mentioned breakthrough infections, and for those of us, I'm fully vaccinated. How concerned should I be if I were to test positive for COVID? What would the impact be on me? Someone vaccinated testing positive for COVID.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, the impact on you likely, if you look at the statistics, is that overwhelmingly you would get either no symptoms or minimally symptomatic. It would be extremely unusual for you to develop serious COVID-19 disease.
Yay.
Assuming you are, and you look pretty good, you're an otherwise healthy person, but there are some people who in fact might be immunosuppressed, who might be transplant individuals or people who have an underlying malignancy that they're being treated for, or autoimmune disease that's requiring immunosuppressive therapy. Those are the ones that would be most vulnerable. But for the otherwise healthy individual, if you did get a breakthrough infection, the statistics tell us that it is very likely that your infection would be either asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic.
Yay. So even people with vaccinations on board can have asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic COVID and pass it to someone else, and still you have a population, a large segment of Americans who don't want to wear a preventative mask. They don't want to be tested, they don't want to wear a mask, and they definitely don't want a vaccine. There's a buffet of options here, okay? Get a vaccine? I'm a no. All right. Mask up. No, I want to be a Karen about it. Okay, socially distanced. No, I want to go to a restaurant. I want to eat indoors. I want to go to a concert. I want to be in a pool of people. I want to do all those things. All right. Get tested. No. But they're free. No. What the F? What are we supposed to do with them? We have to make it harder for them to do the things they want to do. We have to make it harder for them to enter your restaurant. We have to make it harder for them to get on public transportation. We have to make it harder for them to come into my workplace, your workplace. We have to make it harder for them to go grocery shopping. We have to make it hard, because if they won't get the vaccine and they won't get tested, then the only solution is wear a stinking mask, a stupid little piece of mask. It isn't that big of a freaking deal. You should be used to it by now. And you got these crazy people. This is a kid who literally drunk drove, okay, with his friend, and caused his own paralysis. Now he's in a wheelchair, okay? And he's a Congress member saying that Anthony Fauci is the problem.
I want to commend Rand Paul. He's always been a champion of justice, always been a champion of liberty, but his referral to the DOJ, I think, is well-founded. You can just go back and very simply look through the clips of Dr. Fauci speaking back in May or even subsequent months after that, and you can tell he has directly lied to Congress. And so when Dr. Fauci when Dr. Rand Paul gave him the opportunity to actually recant his statements, he declined. And then when Rand Paul started pressing him further and said there will be consequences for those responsible, I'm not sure if you noticed in that clip, but you see his hands start to shake uncontrollably.
What?
A lot of people say, oh, well, that's uncontrollable rage. No, that is fear. Because Dr. Fauci knows he's been working as a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party. He's been funding through the NIH, which with our tax dollars, what I consider to be militaristic research on how to make an animal virus more transmissible to humans. So I think it's very well founded that we refer this to the DOJ. Jenna, I will just tell you, unfortunately, the DOJ right now is under the control of the Biden administration. So what's going to come of it, I don't know. But I'll tell you, when we take the majority back in 2022, I'll make sure consequences are doled out.
Okay. That kid, Madison Cawthorn, is sitting on the TV show hosted by election fraudster Jenna Ellis. Okay, that they're interviewing each other now. These are people who do great harm to themselves and others. Jenna Ellis was part of Sidney Powell and Mike Lindell and Rudy Giuliani and this whole crew that lost their ability to practice law or are practicing law on a pinhead because they're waiting to see if they lose their bar licenses or if they have to pay monetary fines to Dominion election systems for lying and defaming their business. Interviewing each other on bogus channels that have the temerity to pass themselves off as news so that they can continue to disinform angry Americans and keep them in a state of perpetual hostility and anger. Now, when you're in that state, you're going to make very bad decisions. Bruce in Illinois.
Hi, Randy. I agree with everything you've been saying. A couple of points. One, it's time for those of us who've been fully vaccinated to stand up, organize, and tell our bosses, we're not coming to work if you don't mandate everyone be vaccinated in this work inside our office space. Number two, can hospitals, private hospitals, can they mandate that if you haven't been vaccinated, we won't treat you? Is there any possibility of that?
I don't think so, but I do think that that they can require that their staff be vaccinated.
Okay. And the other thing is, I read this article, and I don't remember the name, but I understand there's 12 people who supply 90%
65
of the. Okay, that many is still a lot of the misinformation about this COVID virus and vaccinations. Why can't they need to be publicized? These people need to be outed.
So that's kind of how we started the show. I was trying to explain to you that one of the doctors, his name is Dr. Merkala, he is a prolific spreader of disinformation and misinformation, health misinformation and disinformation, including that tanning beds cure cancer. And he was reported to the Federal Trade Commission and the FDA, and he had to pay $2.95 million back to the people who bought those tanning beds thinking it was a cure for cancer, okay? This is a guy who is responsible for the lion's share of vaccination disinformation. The other one is a guy I know, and is really sad, but it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., He's an anti-vaxxer too, and he's responsible for a lot of this disinformation. He's part of the disinformation dozen that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
They all need to be outed, and they all need to be shown to be.
Well, the other ones are like, on TV, and you know who they are, right? And,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, yeah, we have a huge problem in this country that people are making large fortunes, actually, off of misinformation, off of misinforming Americans. That's, Jenna Ellis is sitting there. This is a woman who perpetuated a lie that literally caused terrorism, domestic terrorism in this here country, where people were organized around the idea that they had to overthrow our government based on the lies she told. And she is on the television. She is literally able to get a television show. Tucker Carlson, is a misinformer, disinformer. I mean, it's all over the place. It's everywhere. And that's why I'm telling people to file Federal Trade Commission complaints. If you go to my Twitter feed, at Randi Rhodes, you'll see the link. You just click on the FTC link, and it takes literally less than 5 minutes to report. You have to say report now. It'll be in the top right-hand corner. It'll say report now. You click on that. Then it'll give you categories. Health. You want to report health misinformation, disinformation. And then it'll give you a menu, and you want to say fraudulent cures or fraudulent information about COVID. You check that. Then you'll go to a page, and it's going to ask you where you heard it. You put in wherever you heard this disinformation. It could be a Facebook page. It could be Fox News. It could be OAN. It could be any place that you heard it. You put that in the box, okay? Then you have to fill out some information about yourself and submit. It literally takes less than 5 minutes. It is something we can all do to stop this from being so profitable, and that is why they do it. This Dr. Mercola that I told you about, you have to read this article for yourself so that you understand why I'm saying it, where I'm getting the information from. Do not trust anything in this environment. Just look it up, read it for yourself, okay? And you will see that this man was literally forced to pay almost $3 million to his own customers for fraudulent medical information because of complaints to the FTC. It works. And bad information about COVID is actionable. It is. So do that.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Hey, brother, we're boots on the ground here. We're moving on to Capitol now. I'll give you a boots on the ground update here in a few.
Multiple capital entries. Multiple capital entries. We're still taking metal, sharpened objects, missiles to include bottles and rocks, and hand-thrown chemical-grade fireworks. This is now effectively a riot.
1349 hours declaring it a riot.
Okay, guys, apparently this tip of the spear has entered the Capitol building.
If I give this up, they're going to have to run access. At least this Capitol we can defend. We gotta hold what we have. Take your pins off.
Yeah. The f***?
Take your pins off.
Oh my God. Olympic treason. So that's how the hearing started today. Did you see any of it? It was 3 hours of gripping officer testimony. It was heartbreaking. Adam Kinzinger was brought to tears today because he understood what battle is, what it is, and how it breaks a person, and how it was important for those police officers, Capitol Police, D.C. Metropolitan Police, to understand that they were not judged on that day by how overwhelmed they were and how outnumbered they were, and that they would be judged by how they put themselves back together. This was gut-wrenching testimony, and it included video. Finally, this is something I've been insisting on for years and years, that when Congress does hearings like this, if there's video evidence of a crime, or video evidence or audio evidence of a phone call or whatever, play it and let the jury, us, know, refresh what happened? Let us, follow the story yet again with an eye toward accountability this time, with an eye toward now we know who some of these people are. You know what I mean? So it was just unbelievable. So today we heard 4 police officers testify. We heard 2 D.C. Metropolitan Police officers. Daniel Hodges, he was the guy who got crushed in that video. For some reason, that video bothers me more than any of the others. I guess because it's just him and his body. Do you know what I mean? He has no freedom of movement. He slammed against a door. I don't know if it's like one of my biggest fears, that I would get trampled at a concert or something from, back in the day. I have no earthly idea why that one bothers me more than any of the other ones. But every time I see him getting crushed like that, it just really upsets me. It just really does, because that those people were emboldened and encouraged and incentivized by people in power telling them this was necessary. It was needed behavior. They were fighting for the preservation of their country. I mean, and it was so heinous. Anyway, Daniel Hodges testified, and Michael Fanone from the D.C. Metropolitan Police. And from the Capitol Police, we heard from Officer Harry Dunn and Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, who testified that when he went home, his wife had seen this whole day of terrorism, this whole day of treason, this whole day of insurrection on the TV, knowing he was there. And all she wanted to do was hug him, and he couldn't hug her because he was drenched in chemical spray. He was drenched in bear spray and in CS gas, and he had to go and get rid of his clothes and take a shower before his wife could hug him. I mean, it was an emotional thing. It was really emotional. Harry Dunn testified about how people were testing him and calling him the N-word repeatedly, by the way, and that in his entire career as an officer, he had never, ever, not once, while wearing a uniform, ever been called the N-word. And these white supremacists who were emboldened and empowered and told to do this by the Donald Trump cabal of insurrection, cowards who wanted to use them, the white supremacists, the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, as their personal military, were all a bunch of white supremacists, and that they had absolutely no regard for anybody's authority or anybody's, prior service to this country. It's interesting. I did not know that Aquilino Gonell had served in Iraq. I did not know that. But yes, he's from the Dominican Republic originally. He served in Iraq. He's a U.S. veteran, then joined, the Capitol Police Force. And they're literally calling him a traitor. They're calling him disloyal. They're saying he's not a real American. It is breathtaking how bamboozled these lunatic, fringy people were and are. And I tell you, what was really offensive? I'll show you. This was before the hearing started, early this morning. Elise Stefanik and Jim Jordan and Jim Banks and Gosar and, all these, crazies that serve Getz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Getz, Gosar, all G's. They're the OGs of treason is what they are. They had a press conference this morning before we heard the testimony. And it was a doozy, man.
There is a reason that Nancy Pelosi is the most disliked elected official in America. She always puts her own partisan politics over what's best for the American people. She's an authoritarian who has broken the people's house.
Oh my God.
She is a lame duck speaker, and everyone knows it. The reason why Nancy Pelosi is refusing to seat accomplished and well-respected hardworking Republicans like Jim Jordan and Jim Banks is because she doesn't want the American people to know the truth or learn the facts. She doesn't want a fair or bipartisan investigation. She wants a political one. It is a fact that in December of 2020, Nancy Pelosi was made aware of potential security threats to the Capitol, and she failed to act. It is a fact that the U.S. Capitol Police raised concerns And rather than providing them with the support and resources they needed and they deserved, she prioritized her partisan political optics over their safety. The American people deserve to know the truth that Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility as Speaker of the House for the tragedy that occurred on January 6th.
Blame the victim, everybody. Blame the hunted. She was hunted, and the police officers today testified that they did come to kidnap and to kill, and that if they had their way, if they could have found Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence or any other member of the House of Representatives who certified the election or who's going to certify the election, they would have killed them. Killed them.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Every one of us here on the dais voted for and would have preferred that these matters be investigated by an independent, nonpartisan commission composed of 5 prominent Americans selected by each party and modeled on the 9/11 Commission. Although such a commission was opposed by my own leadership in the House, it overwhelmingly passed with the support of 35 Republican members. It was defeated by Republicans in the Senate, and that leaves us where we are today. We cannot leave the violence of January 6th and its causes uninvestigated. The American people deserve the full and open testimony of every person with knowledge of the planning and preparation for January 6th. We must know what happened here at the Capitol. We must also know what happened every minute of that day in the White House. Every phone call, every conversation, every meeting leading up to, during, and after the attack. Honorable men and women have an obligation to step forward. If those responsible are not held accountable, and if Congress does not act responsibly, this will remain a cancer on our constitutional republic, undermining the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democratic system. We will face the threat of more violence in the months to come and another January 6th every 4 years.
She's a Republican. She's a very conservative Republican. That there is Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney's daughter, who voted with Donald Trump more often than I think any other member of the House. And she is on the January 6th Select Committee. So shut up, Elise Stefanik, and stop blaming the victims of the attack for the attack. It's all they have. It's everything that they have is to blame the people who were targeted, including themselves. It's unbelievably a death cult that is serving with the power of a member of Congress. Gosar is a member of Congress. Getz is a member of Congress. Green is a member of Congress. Elise Stefanik is a member of Congress, and they are willing to blame their own damn selves. They're willing to blame Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi and Adam Kinzinger and every single member of Congress for being targeted by Donald Trump and his mob. For being targeted. Wow, in my entire life, I've been following politics for a very, very stinking long time. And I've seen lies before, obviously lying us into war, which now Biden is trying to clean up. How many years later? 20? So do you think that I'll be alive when it's time to clean up the mess that Trump made? If it took 20 years to clean up the lies of Bush and Cheney? Oh my God. The wheels of justice turn so slow. But honest to God, man, there's video now, okay? There's video, there's audio, there's people in jail, there's cooperators, there's, I just for the life of me think maybe it will happen just ever the slightest bit faster. And by it, I mean accountability and justice. Because, look, I will tell you why the Republicans are fighting this tooth and nail. The only thing they have to offer their voters is more anger, more hatred, and more resentment. That is what they're running on. That is the entirety of what they're running on: hatred, anger, and resentment. They have nothing to show for the last 4 years except violence, except hostility, except a divided country, a politicized virus, a politicized mask, a politicized vaccine, death, destruction, a heinous situation for the United States of America that was all caused by misinformation, disinformation, lying, cheating, stealing, and thieving. And that is it. They produced absolutely nothing of value in all the time that they've been serving. They transferred wealth from the working class to the rich over and over and over again. That is their singular focus when they hold power, is getting your money and giving it to their donor class, giving it to the corporate class, giving it to the Koch brothers class, giving it to people that give some of it back to them in the form of campaign donations. I mean, it's a disgusting revolving door of the well-connected and the elite. And what do they do? What do? They tell you that they are you and that I am the elite. It's so sick and twisted. And they're doing the same thing with, this insurrection. I think maybe this is easier to understand than the transfer of wealth. Because obviously, Elise Stefanik and the Jordans of the world and the Jim Banks of the world and the Gosars and the Getz and the Greens, they're all turning themselves and, they're the victims. They're being victimized. And it's so sick and sad and wrong because what is being victimized is the very democracy that we rely on in order to be heard. Our very free speech, our very freedom of speech. If you can't vote, you don't have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of choice. You don't have freedom, period. And while they literally sacrifice freedom on the altar of Donald Trump's, hopes and dreams and wishes, they're actually telling you that the people who were targeted caused it and that they who incited this are the victims. Whoa, this is real slavery is freedom stuff. This is 2 and 2 is 5 stuff. It's unbelievable. And I want you to know that these lies land hard. They cost people their livelihoods. They cost people their lives. They cost people their mental, health. They cost people dearly. Lies. Ask any veteran who served in Iraq and or Afghanistan or both. Ask any veteran who served in Vietnam. Ask any veteran who served in any war other than World War II, and most of those guys, like my dad, are gone, okay? These were wars literally based on lies. And these are people who are so singularly damaged by those lies. And now you have an entire country that is being poisoned by these lies physically. With the COVID lies, the vaccine lies, the masking lies. By the way, the CDC is going to request again that K through 12, all the kids wear masks in school as they return to school, and that people who are living in high transmission areas like this one, I'm in Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, Los Angeles, which isn't particularly, terrible, but Mississippi, that everybody mask up again because of the lies around the virus, because of the politicization of the virus itself, putting politics into medical information, putting politics into vaccinations, putting politics into masking, putting politics into testing. This is so dangerous and damaging, and it's now totally observable, totally documentable, totally knowable. You can see it. They're for violence. They're for anger.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Even though there's overwhelming evidence to the contrary, including hours and hours of videos and photographic coverage, there's a continuous shocking attempt to ignore or try to destroy the truth of what truly happened that day, and to whitewash the facts into something other than what they all mistakenly reveal, an attack on our democracy by a violent domestic extremists and a stain on our history and our moral standing here at home and abroad.
Okay, so that was Sergeant Aquilino Gunnell from the Capitol Police Department testifying that in spite of hours and hours of photographic evidence and video, they're still trying to, pretend this didn't happen, and that the GOP are being victimized by evil Nancy Pelosi and her select committee, which only exists because the Republicans refused to vote for an outside independent commission to investigate the origins of this January 6th insurrection. The Senate blocked it. House Republicans voted no. And so here we are with thousands and thousands of videos of the most atrocious attack on the U.S. Capitol and the police officers who were there trying to defend it. I mean, it's just, it's so sick and sad that this actually can happen in America because propaganda is so sophisticated now. It's like you could have some doofus, in some backwater town with undue influence over others because of social media, right? And a president who knows this, who has the psychological profile data on all these, miscreants and knows just how to target them with the kind of message that makes them resentful, angry, and violent, and does it, and then claims he's the victim. He's the victim. I'm going to walk you through this testimony. This is Michael Fanone's testimony. This was hair-raising.
At some point during the fighting, I was dragged from the line of officers and into the crowd. I heard someone scream, "I got one." As I was swarmed by a violent mob, they ripped off my badge. They grabbed and stripped me of my radio. They seized ammunition that was secured to my body. They began to beat me with their fists and with what felt like hard metal objects. At one point, I came face to face with an attacker who repeatedly lunged for me and attempted to remove my firearm. I heard chanting from some in the crowd, "Get his gun," and kill him with his own gun.
Jesus.
I was aware enough to recognize I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm. I was electrocuted again and again and again with a taser. I'm sure I was screaming, but I don't think I could even hear my own voice. My body camera captured the violence of the crowd directed toward me during those very frightening moments. It's an important part of the record for this committee's investigation and for the country's understanding of how I was assaulted and nearly killed as the mob attacked the Capitol that day. And I hope that everyone will be able to watch it. The portions of the video I've seen remain extremely painful for me to watch at times, but it is essential that everyone understands what really happened that tragic day. During those moments, I remember thinking there was a very good chance I would be torn apart or shot to death with my own weapon. I thought of my 4 daughters who might lose their dad. I remain grateful that no member of Congress had to go through the violent assault that I experienced that day.
Okay, that's part of Michael Fanone's. Let's move on to D.C. Metro Police Officer Daniel Hodges' story. He was the one that was crushed.
We had been marching in 2 columns, but as we got closer to the West Terrace, the crowd became so dense that in order to progress, we marched single file with our hands on the shoulders of the man in front of us in order to avoid separation. However, as we came close to the terrace, our line was divided and we came under attack. A man attempted to rip the baton from my hands, and we wrestled for control. I retained my weapon after I pushed him back. He yelled at me, "You're on the wrong team." Cut off from our leadership, which was at the front of our formation, we huddled up and assessed the threats surrounding us. One man tried and failed to build a rapport with me, shouting, "Are you my brother?" Another takes a different tack, shouting, "You will die on your knees." I was at the front of our group and determined we had to push our way through the crowd in order to join the defense proper. So I began shouting, "Make way! as I forged ahead, hoping that I'm clearing a path for others behind me to follow. However, as I looked back, I saw that the rest of the group came under attack and were unable to follow. The crowd attempted to physically bar the rest of the platoon from following. I backtracked and started pulling the terrorists off my team from their backpacks and their collars. Around this time, one of the terrorists who had scaled the scaffolding that adorned the Capitol at the time threw something heavy down at me and struck me in the head, disorienting me. I suspect this resulted in the likely concussion I dealt with in the weeks after. Another man attempted to disarm me of my baton, and again, we wrestled for control. He kicked me in my chest as we went to the ground. I was able to retain my baton again, but I ended up on my hands and knees and blind. The medical mask I was wearing at the time to protect myself from the coronavirus was pulled up over my eyes so I couldn't see. I braced myself against the impact of their blows and feared the worst. Thankfully, my platoon had repelled their own attackers and got me back on my feet. The crowd started chanting USA at us, and we struck out again for the West Terrace. On my left was a man with a clear riot shield stolen during the assault. He slammed it against me and, with all the weight of the bodies pushing behind him, trapped me. My arms were pinned and effectively useless, trapped against either the shield on my left or the door frame on my right. With my posture granting me no functional strength or freedom of movement, I was effectively defenseless and gradually sustaining injury from the increasing pressure of the mob. Directly in front of me, a man seized the opportunity of my vulnerability, grabbed the front of my gas mask, and used it to beat my head against the door. He switched to pulling it off my head, the straps stretching against my skull and straining my neck. He never uttered any words I recognized, but opted instead for guttural screams. I remember him foaming at the mouth. He also put his cell phone in his mouth so that he had both hands free to assault me. Eventually, he succeeded in stripping away my gas mask, and a new rush of exposure to CS and OC spray hit me. The mob of terrorists were coordinating their efforts now, shouting, "Heave! Ho!" as they synchronized, pushing their weight forward, crushing me further against the metal door frame. The man in front of me grabbed my baton that I still held in my hands, and in my current state, I was unable to retain my weapon. He bashed me in the head and face with it, rupturing my lip and adding additional injury to my skull. At this point, I knew I couldn't sustain much more damage and remain upright. At best, I would collapse and be a liability to my colleagues. At worst, be dragged out into the crowd and lynched. Unable to move or otherwise signal the officers behind me that I needed to fall back, I did the only thing that I could do and screamed for help.
Yeah, and you know, it's all okay because Trump said so. It's all okay what happened to these police officers, what happened to our Capitol. It's okay.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, this is Officer Daniel Hodges on the day that he just described. Hard to listen to, isn't it? It's hard to watch. That was 53 seconds. 53 seconds. And it was hard to listen to and it was hard to watch. 53 seconds. This went on for hours. For hours, this insurrection. For hours, this terrorism. For hours, this violence at the Capitol. With an eye towards hunting down and killing Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence. And they say there's no bipartisanship. here in this here country. Huh. All right, here's Officer Harry Dunn. He's testifying about, the flagpole beatings.
I was stunned by what I saw. In what seemed like a sea of people, Capitol police officers and Metropolitan police officers, MPD, were engaged in desperate hand-to-hand fighting with rioters across the West Lawn. Until then, I had never seen anyone physically assault Capitol Police or MPD, let alone witness mass assaults being perpetrated on law enforcement officers. I witnessed the rioters using all kinds of weapons against officers, including flagpoles, metal bike racks that they had torn apart, and various kinds of projectiles. Officers were being bloodied in the fighting. Many were screaming, and many were blinded and coughing from chemical irritants being sprayed in their faces. I gave decontamination aid to as many officers as I could, flushing their eyes with water to dilute the chemical irritants. Soon thereafter, I heard, "Attention all units, the Capitol has been breached," and that rioters were in various places inside the building. At that point, I rushed into the Capitol with another officer, going first to the basement on the Senate side, where I'd heard an MPD officer needed a defibrillator. After returning outside to the West Terrace to assist officers, I went back into the Capitol and up the stairs towards the crypt. There I saw rioters who had invaded the Capitol carrying a Confederate flag, a red MAGA flag, and a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. I decided to stand my ground there to prevent any rioters from heading down the stairs to the Lower West Terrace entrance, because that's where officers were getting decontamination aid and were particularly vulnerable. At the top of the stairs, I confronted a group of insurrectionists, warning them do not go down those steps. One of them shouted, "Keep moving, patriots."
Oh, good God. All right. And this is the most vile testimony that you're about to hear. I'm warning you now. It's pretty ugly. It's really raw. It's typical of Trump supporters. It's shocking, but it's not surprising, but it's awful.
I told them to just leave the Capitol, and in response they yelled, "No, man, this is our house. President Trump invited us here.
Huh.
We're here to stop the steal. Joe Biden is not the president. Nobody voted for Joe Biden. I'm a law enforcement officer, and I do my best to keep politics out of my job. But in this circumstance, I responded, well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count? Am I nobody?" That prompted a torrent of racial epithets. One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This nigger voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, f***ing nigger." No one had ever called me a nigger while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer. In the days following the attempted insurrection, other black officers shared with me their own stories of racial abuse on January 6th. One officer told me he had never, and in his entire 40 years of life, been called a nigger to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th. Yet another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of nigger you really are." To be candid, the rest of the afternoon is a blur.
His entire career, he's never heard that word being thrown at him, except for Trump supporters. Poor Harry. I gotta say, this is just, like I said, it's shocking, but it's not surprising. You know who they are. They're white supremacists, and they are literally terrified and resentful and angry and full of hatred for everybody that isn't them. And Republicans know this, and they are exploiting those feelings, encouraging those feelings, manifesting those feelings, giving permission to those feelings to those people for their benefit. It's all they have. All that's left of the Republican Party is anger, hatred, and resentment. That is all they have to offer. And people who are in the thick of those feelings can't see their way to a better place. And so they just sit there and ferment in it. But Donald Trump is so slick that he literally told Carol Leonnig and Phil Rucker when they were interviewing him in Mar-a-Lago for their book, I Alone Can Fix It, that it was a very loving crowd. What he means is they loved him enough to die for him. They loved him enough to be violent for him. They loved him enough to be ugly for him, to be racist for him. He gave them permission to be this way. He gave them permission to be violent. He gave them permission to be angry. He gave them permission to be full of rage and hatred. He told them they are victims of a swamp, which he is the lead lizard. He's the lead swamp thing, and he's just the world's best salesman. Seriously, making suckers out of them. Liz Cheney said, asked, what did you make of Donald Trump's comment that this was a very loving crowd?
Officer Grinnell, when you think about that and share with us the vivid memory of the cruelty and the violence of the assault that day, and then you hear former President Trump say, quote, it was a loving crowd. There was a lot of love in the crowd. How does that make you feel?
It's upsetting. It's a pathetic excuse for his behavior, for something that he himself helped to create, this monstrosity. I'm still recovering from those hugs and kisses that day that he claimed that so many rioters, terrorists, were assaulting us that day. If that was hugs and kisses, then we should all go to his house and do the same thing to him.
Oh, my God.
To me, it's insulting, it's demoralizing, because everything that we did was to prevent everyone in the Capitol from getting hurt. And what he was doing, instead of sending the military, instead of sending the support or telling his people, his supporter, to stop this nonsense, he egged them to continue fighting. I was in the lower West Terrace fighting alongside these officers. And all of them were telling us, Trump sent us.
Trump sent us. Every officer, to a man, testified that the insurrectionists were there because they felt that Donald Trump told them to do this, invited them to do this. Donald Trump never came out of the White House that day to tell them to stop. When he saw that violence, he sat there and watched it on TV.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
What makes the struggle harder and more painful is to know so many of my fellow citizens, including so many of the people I put my life at risk to defend, are downplaying or outright denying what happened. I feel like I went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful. My law enforcement career prepared me to cope with some of the aspects of this experience. Being an officer, you know your life is at risk whenever you walk out the door, even if you don't expect otherwise law-abiding citizens to take up arms against you. But nothing, truly nothing, has prepared me to address those elected members of our government who continue to deny the events of that day, and in doing so, betray their oath of office.
That is the crux of the biscuit, as they say. Not just the whitewash, but that it was a day of love. It was a day of peace and love, everybody, and nothing but peace and love. According to Donald Trump, it was a loving crowd. They were a very loving crowd. They were hugging and kissing officers. It was a beautiful thing to watch. It was, I mean, the disgusting nature that these Republicans pose themselves, I can't believe we got here. I mean, yes, I'm used to Republicans lying. I'm used to them wanting to agitate for war. I'm used to them lying about death panels. I'm used to them lying about tax codes. I'm used to them telling me it will trickle down to you. Just let us give all your money to the top and it will trickle down. I'm used to the lies. I really am. But I am not used to exact opposite world. I am not used to slavery is freedom. 2 and 2 is 5. Donald Trump is presidential in any way, shape, or form. The election was stolen. We are a communist nation. That's what he was telling his crowd the other night. Oh, America's gone full on commie. I mean, this is all to stoke anger and resentment and hatred for your own country. You want to see something? Okay, this is unbelievable to me. This is why I pulled this. I just, for the life of me, I cannot believe how low people will go in public, in freaking public, okay? Yes, they beat police officers. Yes, they had pipe bombs. Yes, there were weapons that were recovered. The whole, recounting of January 6th on the Republican side of the aisle has been a whitewash at best and a full-throttled lie. It was a day of love at worst, okay? But here's something really simple. So you've got this crazy channel Newsmax, which is taking Fox's leftovers, their discards, the people that don't find Fox radical enough or hateful enough or angry enough. And so they're migrating to channels that are even more hateful, that are even more full of crap, right? To the point where the hosts that work for this Newsmax channel are literally outwardly, openly, publicly saying that they won't root for America in the Olympics. Swear to God. They won't root for America in the Olympics. They're enjoying watching America, Team USA lose, not just in soccer, women's soccer, but in basketball too.
Well, folks, it's not often that I'm happy a U.S. team loses in the Olympics. It makes me sad to say it.
Oh.
But I found myself rooting against not just Megan Rapinoe and her merry band of America-hating female soccer players. They lost one game, I guess, over the last few days. But I took pleasure
You're not even watching.
in the men's basketball team, USA's first team loss since 2004. Yes, Team USA suffering an embarrassing loss to France, 83-76. The collection of whiny, overpaid social justice warriors are very hard to root for. The team is filled with anthem kneelers, and I find it ironic they are willing to put USA across their chest, but in the not-so-distant past, they would kneel for the anthem. Somebody ought to go up to them and just rip USA off their chest. I don't want them wearing it.
Oh, my God. You do realize that Megan Rapinoe and the women's soccer team were joined by the Australian soccer team when the kneeling happened, that the Australians kneeled also? You understand that. And you also understand that the Olympic teams are made up of people from all races. Team USA is not all white guys. especially the basketball team, okay? It's not a team of white guys. The women's soccer team is not a team of white girls. You realize the Olympics are an international extravaganza of people from all races, all walks of life. That's what makes it international. Oh my God. And then if that wasn't enough, this lunatic, fringy, right-wing crazy who wants to root against Team USA had a guest on who also hates Team USA.
All right, so ladies, Alex, I'll start with you. I really do feel bad rooting against these two teams, women's soccer and men's basketball, but I don't know. I'm not rooting for them, Alex.
I'm not either. I side with you. We were absolutely humiliated by France, and honestly, I don't care. Olympic ratings are at a record low, and that's because the American people don't want to root for anyone who doesn't even love America. My loyalty lies with God and then my country.
Shut up. Just shut the F up. Oh my God. Can you believe this goes on in this country? That you have these people who are literally on the TV trashing the United States of America in the Olympiad and saying that the ratings are low because of Megan Rapinoe and the men's basketball. No, the ratings are low because it's COVID infested. There's no one in the stands. The only people who are watching this are the families of the Olympic athletes because they couldn't go to Tokyo. That's why it's a disaster, not because of the basketball team or because of the women's soccer team or the women's field and track team. And Megyn Kelly, you know, she started this with, trashing the women's track and field teams. You know, like they were really watching women's track and field events. Like they cared about it. Like they were really watching any of this. This is total bullcrap. It's just a way for them to signal their anger and hatred for America to their angry, hateful audience. I cannot believe how low this has gotten. I just cannot believe it, but it has. Rob in Arizona.
Hi, that's funny because, you know, after the record floods, record fires, record heat, record locust, killer, what was that other
wasp
vermin we had?
Hornets.
Wasps and all that.
Hornets.
And, and then, of course, you know, COVID. I don't know how they could basically say God loves this country. We're going to go back to that. Hey, but anyways, I was going to say that, you know, there was a clip on that I was trying to find, and there's a testimony, and I wasn't watching the TV, so I don't have the name, but it summed it up perfectly. The guy was basically saying, because I always thought, why didn't they start shooting or whatever? But I thought, well, we don't want a bloodbath in this country either.
Right.
So the way they handled it was perfect. And the way he said it, he goes, yeah, we knew there were incendiary devices. They found stuff. We could see guns. And we didn't know that if we pulled out our guns and started shooting, that was going to be the signal for them to pull out all that stuff and start blowing up stuff, because they didn't know how much was out there. They knew it was there. They didn't know how much. So using great restraint, they probably prevented a bloodbath from happening.
Yeah. Yes, there were a couple of hundred of them, and there were like 8,000 to 10,000 of the traitors, of the treasonous, of the insurrectionists. So they couldn't start firing.
Oh! All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
As patrol officers, we can only, deal with the crimes that happen on the streets, the misdemeanors, and occasionally the violent felonies. But you guys are the only ones we've got to deal with crimes that occur above us. I need you guys to address if anyone in power had a role in this, if anyone in power coordinated or aided or abetted or tried to downplay, tried to prevent the investigation of this terrorist attack, because we can't do it. We're not allowed to. And I think the majority of Americans are really looking forward to that as well.
Daniel Hodges, D.C. Metropolitan Police officer that was crushed, is asking Congress to please look up. Stop looking down. We're patrol officers. We can deal with the street. You need to look up for us because we're not allowed to look up there. We're not allowed to do federal investigations. We can't find out if anybody aided, abetted, encouraged, whitewashed, tried to impede this investigation. We can't. It's not in our purview. It's not anything we're allowed to do. Please do this for us. Please do this for us. Harry Dunn was a little more specific.
What I ask from you all is to get to the bottom of what happened. And that includes, like, I echo the sentiments of all of the other officers sitting here. I use an analogy to describe what I want as a hitman. If a hitman is hired and he kills somebody, the hitman goes to jail. But not only does the hitman go to jail, but the person who hired them does. There was an attack carried out on January 6th, and a hitman sent them. I want you to get to the bottom of that.
Wow, that was fairly specific, okay? It was a hit mob that the hitman ordered attack the Capitol of the United States of America. And now you've got right-wing media making it all okay to root against America. Oh, my God. They will not stop because that's all they have are a bunch of very left-behind dead-enders who are super angry, super hateful, super resentful of God knows what. I guess losing the election was, too much for them. They can't handle competition. So now, I mean, you could even yell at, the women's soccer team. You can yell at the men's basketball team. Hey, everybody, Simone Biles quit. Do we hate her too? Because it was, she just didn't. She couldn't get in the zone for competition, so she quit. She left Team USA last night. Do we hate her too? Should she be stripped of the Team USA? I mean, it's so easy to see how childish these people are. It's so easy to see what little babies they are, that they have always been snowflakes. They have always been the P word. That's what they are. They literally hate this country. And they have the nerve to call themselves patriots. They literally attack this country and have the nerve to say that that they are the victims. It's mind-blowing, but this is what I mean when I say when you're angry and hateful and resentful. This is what I mean when I say you don't make the best decisions when you are in that state of mind. Wanda in California.
Oh, hello, Randy.
Hi.
I thank you for what you do. I just thought about the Olympics when Obama was in office. I don't know if you remember this, but it was President Obama, it was Michelle Obama, it was Oprah Winfrey. I'm not sure who else, but those three powerhouses went to either France or wherever they go to make the decision as to where the next Olympics is going to be. And America lost. And I could not believe Republicans, mainly white young ones, that was cheering and cheering that America had lost the bid. That's when I said, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, they've been rooting against this country for a quite some time, but now it's all permissible. It used to be shameful to do that, and now there's no shame. There's absolutely not a shred of shame left. Yeah. Well, I mean, they hate this country. They really do. It's kind of like, if I can't have her, nobody else can. It's one of those psychotic episodes. And we just have to get through it and make sure that these people pay the price for their violence.
I hope they do. I really hope they do.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, Randy.
Thank you, Wanda. Yeah, they're going to turn these guys that are sitting in prison for beating police officers, for bringing weapons to the Capitol, for an insurrection. They're going to turn them into prisoners of war. Oh, yeah. Those guys are the ultimate victims. Those guys are, they're prisoners. They're political prisoners. They're Pelosi's prisoners. It's just, wow. It's gone completely haywire. Now the only good thing is that there's very few of them left. I mean, there's about 25% of the United States of America that still believes that Donald Trump is president. It's very twisted, but it's a small amount. However, this is the problem with social media being what it is. Like I said, a guy sitting in the backwoods somewhere has this unbelievable following where before social media, no one would, give a rat's ass about this guy. But now people can access this guy's hatred and glom onto it, and it grows. And that is the problem that we are coping and dealing with here. So it's very important. I guess, most Americans understand that the people that do violence, the people that did do violence, the people that did beat police officers, be held accountable in a very public way, meaning trials and sentencing, and that the message is sent that there's a very, very high price to pay for violent attacks in America. Alfredo in California.
Hey, Randy. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Yeah, this psychopath, Trump, he's still at it. He's having rallies everywhere, inciting people to more violence. He has a banner behind him that says President Donald Trump, as if he's still the president of the United States. And he's bragging that he's going to be reinstated in August, on August 6th or something like that. They're still at it.
I know.
And by the way, we no longer have bipartisan politics anymore.
No.
That's out of the window.
We don't even have nonpartisan disease, okay? Disease is now a partisan thing. Disease is the Chi-Coms. Which you understand, you freaks, means that China attacked us with a biological weapon, if you believe that, while Donald Trump was president, and he called it a hoax.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
On January 6th, and in the days thereafter, almost all members of my party recognized the events of that day for what they actually were. One Republican, for example, said, quote, "What is happening at the U.S. Capitol right now is unacceptable and un-American. Those participating in lawlessness and violence must be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. No member of Congress should now attempt to defend the indefensible, obstruct this investigation, or whitewash what happened that day. We must act with honor and duty and in the interest of our nation."
It's so interesting that the most conservative members of the House of Representatives, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, are part of the commission and taking it uber seriously because they know that the insurrection ain't over, that Donald Trump is egging people on just like he did that day, and that her opening statement was she needs to know everything that happened at the White House, every phone call, every email, every communication, every single minute of the day. Because she understands that not only did Trump give them permission to go be violent, not only did he encourage them to go be violent, but that he literally enjoyed watching it on the television while it was happening. And you either have to accept that he was derelict in his duty to send anybody in to help those officers, or that he believed his duty was to let them all get killed. Because he could see it the way you could see it. He could watch it on TV the way you watched it on TV, the way I watched it on TV. We all watched it on TV. Everybody knew what was going on and went on for hours and hours. And Donald Trump was watching it on TV, and Donald Trump was enjoying it. And that is sick, and that is sad. And that's the truth that has to come out. That is what everybody in this country needs to know, needs to hear, and needs to hear it from somebody that votes like them. And that would be Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Nathaniel in Texas.
Yes. I just want to know, why come they don't get their own island and they can do what they want to do? Why do we have to put up with all this? And I used to be a Republican.
Well,
I'm ashamed of the Republicans.
I'm ashamed of them too. I am really ashamed that they're Americans. I'm ashamed that we do have to share our country with them, but we do. They're citizens, and they're entitled to all the protections that this Constitution provides. They're entitled to due process. They're entitled to air their grievances. What they're not entitled to do is infect other people with a virus because they don't believe it's real. The other thing they're not entitled to do is be violent towards anybody else. And
it's so sad.
Well,
and God is watching, and they want to play God.
Well,
you better quit it. God is coming.
They use God as a shield for hatred, and they'll have to explain that to him or her when they get there. But right now, I have to deal with making sure that they have due process, making sure that they can meet the bar of justice, making sure that they have a jury of their peers, making sure that everything is done with all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted under the Constitution of the United States of America. That's our job now. That's our job, justice. And with an eye toward the fact that they are American citizens, even though they despise that fact about their own damn self. These are self-loathing American citizens who have decided that they don't like the way that we, conduct our business. They don't like the American system of government. They don't like the president now. They don't like being in the minority party. And so they want to wave their arms and shout about it, and that's okay. What's not okay is that they attack our way of life, that they attack the certification of an election, that they attack Republicans and Democrats alike in Congress who they disagree with, and that they dress it up in, I only have faith in God. That's the sovereign citizen crap. You understand that, right? Sovereign citizens, which is a fancy name for white supremacists, it's an outgrowth of the racist John Birch Society, which is what Fred Koch, the father of the Koch brothers, founded. The John Birchers, okay? These were a bunch of racist, anti-Semitic, rich people that started this swill back in the 50s. And now they call themselves sovereign citizens or 3%ers or Proud Boys or Oath Keepers. It's all the same. They believe that they don't have to follow the laws of the United States of America. They are citizens of God. Well, we're not a Christian nation. We're not a nation of the Bible. We're a nation of the Constitution. We live by laws of man, not the Bible. And everything that they preach or believe entitles them to do violence or entitles them to infect you or entitles them to, keep themselves out of mask mandates or be Karens or, create hysteria in store. It's all bullcrap. It's in their head. They just have decided that they hate the American system of jurisprudence. They hate the American system of governance. They don't like the will of the people. And when they don't like something, they get to hate it. I mean, hate. That's what you just saw on Newsmax. They literally hate Team USA because they don't like them. They don't like what they stand for. They don't like what they kneel for. They don't like what they sit for. They don't like what they, what they sleep for, what they stand up. They don't like them. Therefore, they become the object of hatred, ridicule, scorn, and violence. Sad. Larry in Lake Elsinore.
How you doing, Randy?
Hey, Larry. I thought about you the other day. I was hoping you were okay.
Oh, I'm just hanging in there all right.
Yeah.
I've been giving a lot of thought. We hear so much lies, so much hate that's being broadcasted. And what we need is for all the people to call their representatives and call their senators and demand a truth in broadcasting law to finally eliminate all these lies and everything that's being propagated over the airwaves or even over cable. We need to step in and stop this nonsense.
Well, this is why I have people filing Federal Trade Commission complaints about bad information about COVID, because we do have a law in this country that does not allow for false information about COVID to be sold as the product of news, okay? We also don't have, we have a law that says you can't promise fake cures, you can't promise, you can't deliver bad information as your product for COVID. And so what I have people doing is filing Federal Trade Commission complaints against Fox News, Newsmax, and anybody else that peddles false health information, because we do have a law that prohibits that.
And I agree with all that, but I think we need to take a step further. We need to actually institute a law that whereby any broadcaster...
Yeah.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Tony Fauci, if that came from the lab, is the godfather of this pandemic, and he has the blood of over 4 million people in his hands. He needs to be out. Yeah. We're out.
Okay, hang on.
The National Institutes of Health.
Okay, that's Peter Navarro, who sent the tweet out that said that Donald Trump had said that the insurrection, everybody needed to show up. It was going to be wild on January 6th, talking to Steve Bannon, who on January 5th told his audience tomorrow is going to be off the hook. Tomorrow is going to be off the chain. Tomorrow is going to be crazy. Tomorrow is going to be, because they knew. They knew. And that is Dr. Peter Navarro sitting on Steve Bannon's show, because all they do now is interview each other, right? And he's sitting on Steve Bannon's show saying that Dr. Fauci is responsible for allowing China to create and release a bioweapon in the United States and around the world while Donald Trump was president, and that Fauci needs to go to jail. Now, Donald Trump, if he was president when China released a biological weapon on the United States of America, and his position was to tell the people of the United States of America that it was a hoax and that they needed to take hydroxychloroquine or stick UV lights up their ass, or drink bleach as a response to a biological weapon being launched by China during his administration, I think the penalty for that kind of treason is death. I do. What is wrong with people that listen to this and can't connect a simple dot? Well, if it was a bioweapon and it was released by China while Donald Trump was president, and for a year Donald Trump was saying, ignore it, it'll go away, it'll just go away, doesn't that mean that Donald Trump was complicit with the Chi-Coms? But these are some really twisted people now.
Friends, as it was in the day of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of Son of Man. And if Dr. Sherry Tenpenny was here, what would she tell us? That this jab is mixing and melting and working and screwing up your DNA. The same thing that was going on before the days of Noah. The exact same thing. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be the coming of the Son of Man. Dr.
Amen,
Fauci,
Coach.
Dr.
Amen.
Fauci is an emissary of the devil, folks. Not just the devil that you see on Halloween, not just a guy who dressed up in a suit. He is an emissary of Beelzebub himself, sent to deceive and destroy the seed of Christ.
Wait, what? So now you have governors, Republican ones, like Arkansas's Governor Asa Hutchinson. How's your brother Tim? Is he still drinking? Yeah. Trying to tell people in Arkansas, no, Dr. Fauci isn't the devil. B, this wasn't released by the Chi-Com. C, this doesn't have an effect on fertility. Women really don't be afraid to get this vaccination. It's not really, going to do anything to you except give you antibodies to help you fight off a deadly virus. And he now gets booed.
Does this impact fertility? Well, the answer is no, and that's been the data, but Dr. Dillahey, do you want to answer that?
So at this point in time, there is no evidence that the COVID...
women you shut down from telling their stories. This is ridiculous.
All right, so go ahead, Dr. Dillahey.
So there is no...
Go ahead, Dr. Dillahey.
So there is no medical evidence at this time that the COVID vaccines impact fertility. There is a great deal of evidence that the COVID illness itself causes problems with pregnancy and fetal demise. So I think it's important for people to have factual, accurate information.
We love it, but you keep covering it up.
You keep covering it up. All right, I'm going to play you a couple who both got COVID. He's still on oxygen. The reason why she didn't get the shot is because she believes some of this swill about fertility and the vaccine.
So you and your husband hesitated to get the vaccine because you have been trying to get pregnant, right? But you've been hearing some misinformation about the vaccine and fertility. So tell me what you heard that made you and Scott choose not to get vaccinated.
I don't think that we really didn't hear anything. There wasn't a yes, get it. There wasn't a no, don't get it. It was kind of, there's not enough information regarding fertility. We have both struggled with fertility it's been 5 years now. I had surgery last year during COVID to try and help my fertility. Went through a very rough recovery. It's not that I didn't want to get the vaccine. It's not that I didn't want to protect myself. I just didn't know. And that's scary whenever you really want a baby. And it's been tough. It's not been easy.
Talk to me about that.
It's scary. I'm 38. I see people with children. And it's hard. It's scary for me. I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that if I got the vaccine. What if I got the vaccine and it made me infertile? What if I got the vaccine and it didn't, but I didn't know? And not knowing is the hardest part. And I think that's the hardest part for everyone. They don't know. They're scared.
Did you talk to your doctors about it?
Yeah, and they said, it's up to you.
Did you talk to your doctor about it? I did, and they said it's up to you. I talked to the doctor, but there's no information. I had no information. I didn't hear anything. I did not hear anything. Okay. So call your doctor. Oh, yeah, they said it's up to... I doubt. I mean, there's evidence, obviously, that it doesn't do anything to women's ability to conceive, because all it does is tell your body, recognize this virus and develop a way to combat it, develop antibodies, and tell your T cells when it sees this that they are the second line of defense to go get it. Go get it. This disinformation and misinformation about COVID is literally killing people. It literally is. You see your husband sitting there with the oxygen in his face. It's just unbelievable. I was watching today a 24-year-old kid who had some idea that, it could never happen to him or whatever, just got a double lung transplant because of COVID. These people are literally snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory, because here we have a country that is giving vaccines to everybody free of charge. No muss, no fuss, no waiting in line, no nothing. And Americans are saying, I don't trust my government. I hate America. America is bad. America is a country full of bad. They're a satanic cabal. They're a bunch of pedophiles. They're drinking the blood of children. What? This is not some third world country where people are begging for vaccines because there's a scarcity of them. We have a country where you can have a free vaccine right now today and keep yourself and your family safe and free of severe COVID, long COVID, hospitalization. What the hell does that cost? You see these people in the hospital. Some of them are in there for 9 weeks, 10 weeks. What do you think their hospital bill looks like? Oh, well, don't worry about it because you'll just pay it. This is crazy. This is mass madness. But that's why I'm telling you, when you hear this disinformation or misinformation about COVID, like Peter Navarro or some random right-wing coach being interviewed and saying, it's the devil, the vaccine is... Report them.